We're going back to the Caledonia Works arsenal today, with the topic being a brand new add-on that has been available for less than a week at the time of this video's uploading. This is the Strath Class 440, a long-lost design from the Highland Railway of Scotland. But first, a brief history on the Strath class. These engines were designed by David Jones and built by Nielsen and Company in 1892, with a total build-out of only 12 locomotives. Despite the class as a whole being referred to as the Strath class, only 4 members actually had the word Strath in their name. Other engines' names included, but were not limited to, Sir George, Tweedale, Glentilt and Glenbrewer. The Straths were almost identical to Jones's earlier Clyde Bogie class of 1886, albeit with a larger diameter boiler. Based on the few real-life photographs that I could find, the Straths were used to haul passenger trains on the Highland Railway. More specifically, these engines ran out of Inverness to destinations such as Perth, Kyle of Laculche, and Wick. We have the Inverness to Kyle of Laculche route in TS, developed by Just Trains and released in 2015, I think, but the in-game route is not set in the Steam era. In 1923, 6 of these locomotives were inherited by the London, Midland and Scottish Railway, who gave them a power rating of only 1p. If my research is correct, half the class were withdrawn before they could enter service with the LMS, while the other half actually received LMS numbers. While locomotive number 94, Strath Tay, was given the LMS number 14273, she never actually carried it as she was withdrawn in 1924. The remaining 5 engines kept going until 1930, but sadly, none of these elegant 440s have survived into preservation. Caledonia Works released the Strath class as a TS add-on on the 26th of November 2025, and she's available on their website for £17, or $41.85 in New Zealand's currency, at full price. This is the second Highland Railway locomotive to be modelled for TS Classic, following the Jones Goods 460, which we got in 2020. The Strath class was not given to me free of charge. Instead, I paid for it with my own money. Incidentally, I've noticed that CW has added an Australia tab to their website, but they haven't released any Australian-themed add-ons yet. Personally, I think this engine is giving off Stirling single vibes, at least where the smokebox and cylinders are concerned. As for any other interesting aspects of the Strath's design that I noticed, these included the cutaway and the running board ahead of the cylinders, the buffer beam being a little wider than the main frame, the same unusual smokebox door as what you'll find on the Jones Goods, and the handbrake wheel looking more like the helmsman's wheel on a ship. Something I remembered with the Strath, but had forgotten with a lot of earlier CW add-ons, especially those based on classes that don't have any colour photographs available, is just how, for want of a better word, jarring it is to see these things in full colour, as opposed to living colour. I make that reference despite not really caring for the Cult of Personality song. Speaking of colour, the Strath add-on comes with all the liveries that these engines would have carried throughout their working lives. The selection is as follows: Highland Railway Jones Green, HR Drummond Green, which has 2 different decals for the tender, HR Cummings Green, LMS Crimson Lake, and LMS Lined Black. To my surprise, Mr. Wilson also included the Highland yellow livery, even though this was never worn by the Straths in real life. As an aside, I initially got these engines confused with the Loch class of 1896, until I remembered that it's the Loch class that Rapido Trains UK are modelling in 00 scale, not the Strath. In any case, the Jones Green livery reminds me of the London and South Western Railway's Drummond Royal Green, as seen here on the T14 class 460. As for what my favourite is out of the Strath's liveries, that's a tie between Highland Yellow, LMS Crimson Lake and Highland Jones Green. My least favourite livery is Cummings Green. The modelling and texturing are done to the usual high standard that one can expect from Chris. I particularly like the copper cap for the chimney, as well as the brasswork on the cab fittings, whistle, and safety valves. Speaking of brasswork, what's this little thing on the cylinder? The Strath uses Locomotion 2.0 scripting from SimNation, which means that she has a good set of features. These include, but are certainly not limited to, a custom auto fireman, toggled on or off with Control R, Performance Mode Pro, toggled on or off with Shift P, cab side doors that you can open, animated valve gear inside of the frames, although it's quite hard to see, 3D firebox and coal, fluctuating water level depending on the route gradient, realistic performance physics, animated water filler cap on the tender, opened with Control T and closed with Control Shift T, and one of my personal favourites, fire intensity synchronised with the exhaust beat. There's a cab camera view for the sandbox on both sides of the boiler, and you can open the lid to look at the sand inside. As the sand is used up over time, you'll need to click and hold the sand level to fill up the box. If I recall correctly, this is the first time CW have implemented such a feature on their locomotives, and there was at least one add-on from a different developer that had the same kind of feature. The add-on of which I am thinking is the Clear Creek Log and Lumber expansion pack, released in February 2017 and developed by Romantic Railroads. In my opinion, these Porter saddle tanks, the Swamp Rat 260, and even that K27 that comes with the Rio Grande Southern route, are not as good as CW's locomotives where overall quality is concerned. In saying that, I still think the K27 is better than these engines from Romantic Railroads. As for audio on the Strath class, this was apparently supplied by Ash of Vulcan Productions, and it's an attempt at matching what Rapido used for the sound set on their Jones goods in 00 scale. The end result is, what I consider to be, a good sound set for the Strath, particularly where the bark at around 25 miles per hour is concerned. There's a functioning reverser lock, controlled with the E key, but on this engine, you'll have to hold down the reverser lock the whole time when you're adjusting the reverser. This thing must have been heavy on the real engines, because it moves very slowly in-game. Elsewhere on the footplate, I noticed Chris's pipe above the firebox door, a little plaque on the fireman's side, and the locomotive's lack of a speedometer, as was commonplace on steam locomotives back in the day. The only gauges on this engine are for the boiler pressure and brakes. I normally drive CW locomotives in advanced mode, but it's good to see that, on their newer engines, they give you the option to run in simple mode by pressing Ctrl A. In this mode, you don't have to deal with the reverser lock and vacuum brake ejector. I've found that, when I'm driving the Strath on a branch line at around 25 to 30 miles per hour, she is content with a lower fire mass than what's advised in the manual. In saying that, it's still best to not let the fire mass drop too low, otherwise the engine won't steam particularly well. According to the manual, the Strath's ideal fire mass is between 800 and 810 pounds, or around 62% if you're using the F4 heads-up display. The Strath doesn't come with any scenarios, as is the norm for CW products, but she does have quick drive consists. The requirements for said consists are matrix trains as Great North of Scotland Railway and LMS Period 1 non-corridor coaches. These packs are available from CW's website and Steam respectively. Incidentally, during this video's production, I found out that Matrix Trains are working on some Highland Railway coaches, but they don't appear to have been released yet. As is pretty much a new tradition at this point, I conducted a speed test on the Dumfries to East Riggs section of Western Lines of Scotland. I managed to get number 98 Glenthruim up to at least 49 miles per hour, with that speed being reached between Rax and Ruthwell. I soon had the idea to try the speed test with a lighter passenger train as opposed to a heavy freight train, so once I got to Ruthwell, I swapped over to another Strath hauling some GNOSR coaches. Number 97, Glen Moor, made it up to 67.3 miles per hour, with that speed being reached between Cummertrees and Annan. A decent effort, even if I do say so myself. In closing, and following a series of test runs, I can safely say that I'm impressed by the Highland Railway Strath class from Caledonia Works. Considering the fact that it's been 95 years since any of the real engines were still in service, Mr. Wilson and his team have done a good job bringing this class back to life, in a virtual sense at least. I look forward to future releases from CW, but as for where I'd rate the Strath, I think she deserves an oddly specific 8.108 out of 10.